All right, hey guys, we're going to go over the second half of lesson 6.2 that we started yesterday with those special equations again. Please make sure you have your calculator out, your math book, and your notebook while you watch this video. All right, so first thing, if you did not take these notes yesterday, you need to pause the video and take these notes. Otherwise, you need to have this page in your notebook out and open while you watch the lesson. We're also going to be taking some more notes in your notebook during this lesson today as well. So again, make sure you have this either screenshotted or written in your notebook so you're ready to go. All right, so a quick little warm-up. If I give you these two problems, can you find out how many solutions that they both have? So pause the video and I want you to try problem 1 and problem 2. You can do this in your notebook or in your math book on a blank page or anywhere that you have space. All right, so the first one, this equation looks good, but this one we need to rewrite. So I'm going to add 3x to both sides. Okay, so I get y equals, I'm going to rearrange it, put my x first, 3x, and then minus 8. Okay, so there's one equation. My other equation was y equals 4x minus 6. So remember from yesterday, we always check their slope first. Okay, so what do we notice about their slope? Well, if you look at the slope, it looks like it's different. The y-intercepts are also different, so if it's different and different, there is just one solution. Those two lines are going to cross in one spot. Okay, if you look at number 2, this first one looks good. The second one I need to rewrite. So I have 4y equals 12 minus 8x. Okay, I'm going to draw my line down, and I got to get that y by itself, so I'm going to divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. I get y equals 3 minus 2x. Now I'm going to rewrite that, so I'm going to write y equals, I'll put my x first, negative 2x plus 3. Okay, now let's compare these equations. So first thing I notice is that their slopes are different. Their y-intercepts are the same. Okay, if you look back at your note page, so different slopes and same y-intercepts means they're going to cross once. So one solution. They're both going to cross at that 3. If they both start there, they both are going to cross there. All right, so our learning goal for today is still to be able to determine the number of solutions a system of equations have. So I want to know, does it have 1? Does it have no solutions? Or does it have infinite? We are still going to be working on that today, but we're going to be adding a little bit to what we did yesterday. Okay, let's go to page 334 and actually try an example. So I have two equations, and I want to know, do they have no solution, one solution, or infinite solutions? So if you look at the first equation, this looks pretty good. Only thing missing is the y-intercept, which is 0. My second equation, I'm going to have to rewrite. So they kind of started it over here. So if I want to get the y by itself here, I'm going to, you can see that they got rid of the 3x by subtracting 3x from both sides. Okay, that's going to cancel. I'm left with negative 4y over here equals, over here, I just have negative 3x plus 0. All right, my last step is I'm going to divide everything by negative 4, divide by negative 4. Even this is 0 over here, I'll divide by negative 4. I end up with 1y, or just y, equals. Here, if I have a negative divided by a negative, that ends up being a positive 3/4 x. And then 0 divided by negative 4, that's just 0. So I end up with 3/4 x plus 0. All right, so that's my second equation. If you look at your first equation, you may notice it looks exactly the same. Okay, so it has the same slope, is the same, and the same y-intercept. They are both the same, so same. It is an infinite number of solutions. Basically, it's one line on top of itself. So there's going to be tons of solutions on that line. So an infinite number of solutions. Okay, page 334, I want you guys to try the check. Now, it looks like you're going to have to rewrite both of these. So you find a little space in your math book and start by rewriting them both. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite them so that they both say y equals. So I'll give you a chance to do that, and then go ahead and compare their slopes and their y-intercepts to see how many solutions it has. So pause the video and go ahead and try that. All right, so if you tried the first one, hopefully you move this 8 to the other side first. Okay, end up with y equals 2x plus 8. That one didn't take a ton of work. Okay, done with that one. Okay, the second one, not a ton of work either. I just need to divide everything by 2. Okay, if I do that, I get y equals, I get 8 plus 2x. Now, I like to rearrange it. You guys know that. Put the x first. It's positive 2x and positive 8. Now, if you guys look at these two equations, okay, we always compare their slopes. Okay, let's look at their slopes. 2 looks like the same. Okay, how about their y-intercepts? Ooh, positive 8, same. So if they both are the same, it's an infinite number of solutions. So hopefully you got that. So it crosses in a ton of spots. All right, so here comes the new stuff in this next example. So we'll do a couple of these together, and then we'll take some notes. So we're on example 4 on page 335. This time they are not going to give you the equations, so there's going to be a lot more work to some problems like this, but we should still be able to do it. Kind of brings back what we did last chapter, which is good. So I have 2 lines, it says. One line passes through these 2 points. Okay. The other line passes through, I'll just highlight them, this point and this point. Okay, so it says, oh man, we're going to need to find the slope. If we want to figure out how many solutions it has, we're going to have to find their slopes to be able to compare and their y-intercepts. Now, one of these is going to be a little easier than the other, but we'll just kind of start. It says, step 1, find the slope of each line. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one. Okay, this one right here in pink. All right, to do that, I'm going to take my y minus my y. So remember, here's my x's and y's, my x's and y's. So I'm going to do the y, 4, minus the other y, 2. So I did 4 minus 2, and then you got to start in the same order. I'll start with 0 minus 3 for my x's. Now, if you work that out, 4 minus 2 is 2. 0 minus 3, that's negative 3. So that actually equals negative 2/3. Okay, so there's my first step. All right, now, if you go to the next one on page 335, it says, okay, let's find the slope of the other lines. Okay, so here's this one and this one. So the same thing. Let's do my y's, negative 3, minus my other y, negative 7. Write that very carefully. And then my x's, 3 minus 9. Okay, now I'm going to show this work a little bit better. I'm going to add the opposite. So negative 3 plus 7, that's 4. And then 3 minus 9, again, I can add the opposite. And I get negative 6. Well, negative 4 over 6, if I kind of divide that down by 2, I get negative 2/3. Okay, so right away, this kind of is going to help us a little bit. I just found out the lines have the same slopes. They both had negative 2/3 if you look at your page. Okay, so I know one thing about them. All right, now it says, well, we better find the y-intercept for both because we need to know those. Now, if I was doing this, I would just kind of do one at a time, but I'll just do it this way to start with. So if you guys look at this first line, this one's kind of nice. You don't really have to do any work for this one, okay? It crosses, it gives you the 0, 4. So I know that y-intercept. Okay, so that one, I don't really have to do any work. So I know that equation. It has that plus 4 at the end. Okay, now the other one, we do have to do some work. So if you guys remember, we started with this equation, y equals mx plus b. Well, I know the slope. I'm going to fill that in, negative 2/3 x plus b. Okay, now remember, if you're trying to find the y-intercept because we don't know it, you can pick an x and a y and plug those in. So it doesn't really matter which one you use. I'm going to use this first one, 3 and negative 3. So for my x, I'm going to plug in a 3. For my y, a negative 3. Then I'm going to kind of draw my line down. All right, now if I am going to do this part, negative 2/3 times 3. I'll come do it over here, times 3. I'll put a 1 under here. So if I do this, I'll go straight across. I get negative 6 over 3. If I divide that out, I get negative 2. Okay, plus b. Now if I want to get b by itself, I'll add 2, add 2. I end up with b equals negative 1. So that looks like my y-intercept of that one is negative 1. So if I remember, they had the same slopes, okay, but different y-intercepts. That means these two lines are going to be parallel. They have the same steepness, but they cross at different spots. So the lines are parallel. That means there will be no solution. They will never cross. And that was kind of a lot of work for that. All right, this next example we're actually not going to do in your math book. We're going to do in your notebook so you have a good example of how to do this, okay, because you guys definitely want one. So if you go to the page that we did yesterday, if you have space, you can do it there, or just go to the back side of that. Okay, so we're going to say we have two lines. So I'm going to say line number 1 goes through the points 0, 6 and 2, 2. Okay, line number 2 goes through the points -1, comma, -8, and 3, comma, 4. And I want to know, do these two lines, do they intersect? Okay, will they cross? So that's what I'm going to kind of check out. So to see that, we need to compare their slopes and their y-intercepts. So I'm going to need to find both of those, just like we did in the last example. Okay, so I'm going to start with line 1. Okay, so I would just write line 1. We're going to start by doing that work. Okay, so to find the slope, remember you can do y minus y and x minus x. So I'm going to take my y coordinates, 6 and 2. I'm going to subtract those. And then my x coordinates, 0 and 2, and subtract those. So 6 minus 2, I end up with 4. 0 minus 2 is -2. If I divide that out, I end up with -2. So my slope for line 1 is -2. Okay, and maybe I probably should have just wrote slope above here so I knew what I was finding. Okay, now my y-intercept of line 1 is actually pretty easy. So I'm even going to write y-intercept. It's just this point, 0, 6. That's my starting point. So I don't have to do a lot of work for that. For my line 1, I'm actually even going to write the equation. So I'm going to say, okay, well, I got my final equation. It's y equals, I know my slope, -2x, plus my y-intercept is 6. Okay, so I found all of that for line 1. Now I'm going to also do line 2. Now line 2, we're probably going to have to do a little bit more work. Okay. All right, so for line 2, let's start by doing the slope. So I'm going to do y minus y and x minus x. All right, so if I take my y coordinates, I see -8 minus 4 for line 2. And then my x coordinates are -1 and 3. So -1 minus 3. Okay, I'm going to start by doing that. Now, just as a quick reminder, you guys can use a calculator or you can add the opposite. I get -12, and then I'll add the opposite. -1 and -3, that's -4, and then a negative over a negative is a positive. So I know my slope is 3. Okay, so that's good. I kind of already know that at least. All right, now I need to find the y-intercept. And if you look at these points up here, there's nothing, neither of these 2 points up here give me the y-intercept. So I'm going to have to do what I did in that last one, where I write the equation, y equals mx plus b. I'm going to have to do some substitutions. So I know my slope is 3. Okay, then I'm going to try to find an x and a y coordinate to plug in. All right, I like positive numbers better, so I'm going to use this one right here, 3 and 4, if you guys can see up there. So I'm going to plug in a 3 for the x coordinate and a 4 for the y, and then I'm trying to solve for b. All right, so if I work that out, I get 4 equals 9 plus b. Get b by itself, I'm going to subtract 9. We did this all last chapter, so this should be very familiar. So b equals, if I do 4 minus 9, I get -5. So that means my y-intercept is 0, -5. All right, so now if I write line 2 equation, I get y equals, my slope is 3x, or 3, and my y-intercept was -5. So there's the equation. All right, finally, I'm going to just use green to kind of show this. I need to compare my slopes. Oops, that was supposed to be a highlighter. My slopes here. Well, my slope, this one's -2, this one's 3, so my slopes are different. Okay, we kind of went over this yesterday. And my y-intercepts, one is 6, one is -5. Those are also different. Okay, so if they are both different, that means there is one solution. Okay, so they are going to cross. So I would say yes, one solution. They're going to cross one time somewhere. And we'll be learning how to solve that later. All right, so for our last example, you can either do this in your notebook if you think you want another example in your notebook, which I would probably do, or you can do it in your math book on page 337. All right, so it says, I have 2 friends hiking along some linear paths at a state park. So, they're both hiking. Grayson's path crosses through the coordinates 2, 3 and 0, 5. So that's Grayson. Okay, the other friend, Xander, passes through the coordinates 1, 1 and 0, -1. I want to know if those 2 friends are walking, do they pass through a common coordinate? So are they going to cross paths? Are they going to hike along the exact same path? Or will they never cross paths? So when their paths never cross, are they like parallel paths? All right, so to figure that out, we're going to have to think, well, I better look at their equations to see, are they going to cross once? Are they never going to cross parallel lines? Or will they end up being on the exact same path? All right, so to do that, let's go ahead and start showing some work. So I have Grayson and I have Xander. Okay, now typically they're going to give you one a little bit easier one. So let's start with Grayson. He goes to the points 2, 3 and 0, 5. So the first thing I need to find, well, first thing I know about Grayson right away is, hey, his slope or his y-intercept is 0, 5. Okay, I'm just going to write that down over here. Okay, it tells me that. All right, now his slope I need to find. So I'm going to do y minus y and x minus x to find the slope. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 minus 5. Remember, those are the y-coordinates. And then 2 minus 0. Okay, so 3 take away 5, that's negative 2. 2 minus 0 is 2. And then negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. So Grayson's slope is negative 1. If I was going to write his equation for his line, it's y equals negative 1x, there's my slope, plus 5. Okay, now I'm going to have to compare Xander's to that. If you want to try this without my help, go ahead and push pause and try it. All right, so Xander, his two coordinates, okay, I'm just going to kind of split this, are 1, 1 and 0, negative 1. So this is kind of nice for Xander. We also don't have a ton of work to do for Xander because they give us the y-intercept there right away. All right, so let's go ahead and just start by finding a slope. So y minus y, x minus x. So my y's are 1 minus negative 1. And then my x's are 1 minus 0. All right, so 1 minus 0 is 1. On this other one, I'm going to add the opposite. And I end up with 2. 2 over 1 is the same as 2. So there's my slope. Okay, so I know Xander's slope is 2. I know his y-intercept already, which is 0, negative 1. So I know his equation is y equals 2x minus 1. All right, so now to see if they're going to cross or if they're going to be on the same path, I'm going to kind of compare their slopes and y-intercepts. All right, so if I look at their slopes, they are different. If I look at their y-intercepts, they are different. If both are different, you guys should know they're just going to cross once. So their paths will cross one time, or just once, you can write. All right, so now I'm going to give you guys some time to practice. So your homework is page 339, 340. You're going to do numbers 1 through 4, 7 and 8, and then 12 and 13. It's right in your math book. Please show your work. Okay, if you guys have questions while you are at home or do not know how to do something, please go in the class kick. It should say like math help, and then just raise your hand. Okay, I think I'm going to make one that's titled tomorrow's date, which is the 8th. So just look for math help February 8th, and then just put your hand up if you have questions or need help. Also, one last thing, you are going to be having a math quiz tomorrow on what we have been doing the last week, all of last week. And I was at school every day except one day, so you guys had me doing it, where you're going to have to graph some systems of equations, find where they cross. We've been doing that for a bunch of days. I will review a little bit tomorrow before we actually start it, so don't worry about that. But we are going to be having a math quiz for about half a class on Wednesday. So if you have questions, please go in the class kick. If you guys complete any late work, you need to email me pictures of your late work so I can enter it in PowerSchool.